What's up, everybody? I'm Jason, this is the Freebird Garage, and today we are replacing this taillight on this Sportster, and that starts right now. The Sportster is actually owned by my brother. He actually has his own YouTube channel, Kooker Tech. Drop it somewhere on the screen for you guys to go check out. Does a bunch of Hummer stuff, slowly growing right now. Fantastic channel, you guys should check it out. I want to help him out because he's a busy guy and get his Sportster on the road again, and he has a faulty taillight. It's not just the bulb we're replacing, we are replacing the whole assembly on here. The reason why is because he has some kind of short going on. It keeps flickering when he rides, and it will just sometimes not even be on at all. Now we are going to do this the soldering way. None of that bullshit butt connector stuff, that's garbage. Do not do that. I'm gonna show you how to do the solder way of getting this connected. Now let's jump into the material list. Heat shrink. This is essential to make sure that your solder is nice and sealed tight for water and everything else from the elements. This is a soldering wand rather than a soldering gun, and it's real nice to get around on the bikes when there are tight spots. That's why I like this, and it's ran obviously by butane. Wire cutters torch here to do the heat shrink. The JP Cycle taillight assembly, which has all of our goodies to get the job done. Let's jump to the install. Disassembling this 11mm. There's 2 bolts that hold this taillight on. If you ever watched the Harley and Davidsons, they said they'd never go to metric. That was a lie. First one off. On the second one, I'm gonna switch to a shorty too, make things a little bit easier. Disassembled, cut the wire. Woo! Thing's seen some miles. Okay, the gasket looks good, it's still intact. Won't have to get a new one for there. The old taillight, dirtied up from many miles on this bike. The new taillight looks pretty identical. Nice job, JP Cycle. Slide this on. Let's get to the fun part, soldering. Okay, the setup for the wiring, went ahead and bolted this up. I didn't show this on camera because it's the same way you take it off. I have it dangling right now on the outside of the rear tin here, and as well as the original wiring where we cut it off. It's tucked up under a couple wire holders that have it drawn all the way under here to keep it aligned with the fender itself. Where you want to cut it, I guess it depends on if you have a short farther up. They give you plenty of wire to deal with, so if you need to rewire the whole thing, you can. But in this case, the short was actually in the taillight bulb assembly, so luckily we don't have to go all the way back there and rewire all of that. We're gonna cut this here. Once that's been cut, we're going to solder the new wire. I'm gonna cut that and then make sure it's nice and taut so that it doesn't drag. And that will cover us here. Get to the soldering and get it done. Drag this back. Start splicing the wires. Got our wires spliced there. I know this is a 2-wire, like the original light had 3 wires. One being your running lights, your brake lights, and your ground. When you get a universal light, you're gonna take the 2 wires that come off of there, put one to your black to blue usually, and red to red to give you power. But your ground wire, you need to actually ground to the bike somewhere in order for it to work. So you're going to extend this wire and have it hook to the taillight there. I went ahead and had to make a crimp. You're going to put some heat wrap around here so it seals it up, and then we're going to solder this end here so that the now ground wire is extended. Alright, starting with the ground wire, and then we're going to gently go across, keeping distance until it starts to form its shape. Looks like all the spots perfect. Nice and sealed. Before we solder these in, I need to get the heat shrink prepared prior, because nothing's worse than getting this thing soldered and then trying to realize that you have heat shrink not on there and you have to cut it up back open. I want to heat shrink these 3 individually, and then I already have these 3 here, but I'm going to slide those over the heat shrink to kind of give it a OEM look, completely sealed up. We're going to line each one now with their cording heat shrink far enough up, out of the way. Start off with the ground wire, and it's going to be the same for all of them once we get rolling here. I take my wire, kind of spool them together, twist them so they don't move. Once that's on there like that, now we are good to solder it. You kind of got to work it. Soldering gun's all heated up. A little awkward when you're up in the air. We're going to do it like this and just paint it on. There we go. There's one done. Now we're just going to repeat that with the other 2. Solders are done there. Shrink wrap all the connections. Pushing the big heat shrinks over. Now that looks factory. Ground wire is back over here. We're gonna put that to the light. Just gotta tuck it up. She's good to go. All right guys, the finished product, all the wires soldered, shrink wrapped, put back together, tucked up so it's like OEM. Now we're gonna see if it looks like OEM. Lights are on, we're good for running. Front brake, there we go. And the rear brake, back to normal. Beautiful. That does it for this one. If you made it all the way through, I would greatly appreciate it if you could hit subscribe button, tap that like, press that notification, leave a comment below and tell me what you think. And for those that have already subscribed, thank you. And as always, stay free, and I'll catch you guys later.